Hi guys, how are you? It's Miss Gordon. I thought that given it's a Saturday in May, a snowy Saturday in May, and we're all stuck in our homes once again, I thought I would take a minute and try and make some bagels. I tried these a couple of weeks ago. They were a huge hit. I've never baked anything in my life, honestly, really, not bagels or anything like that. Brownies, yes. Cookies, yes. Bagels, hard no. So thought I'd give this a try. They were a huge hit. I got this recipe from some friends who had tried it. I can't take credit for it myself, but it is a good one, and I'll share that with you at the end or alongside this video. But to get started, you're going to need a little bit of warm water, some sugar, some oil, active dry yeast. Now, active dry yeast is a little bit tricky to find right now. It's just, I've got a little bit in this dish right here. It's hard for you to see. It's just this little powdery stuff, right? So active dry yeast, an egg, some honey, some salt, and some flour. And that's basically the basis for the bagels themselves. And then these are Montreal-style bagels. So instead of just baking them straight away, you boil them first and then you bake them. Okay, so we're going to try and go through that together. And again, I've never made a video like this in my life, so who knows how this is going to go. Okay, so we're going to need a little bit of extra honey at the end too to put in the water while the bagels are boiling. It gives it a little bit of a golden color. And also, of course, I've got some sesame seeds and poppy seeds to sprinkle on them at the end, okay, before we bake them. So that's what we're going to need. Also some parchment paper. We'll need some parchment paper to line our pans with. And we've got a pot of water behind me here that we're going to get boiling to boil them in. Okay, so a pretty good sized pot if you have one. Alrighty, so we're going to get started in a large bowl, which I have here. It calls, we're going to whisk together. So a whisk is, of course, this tool here. Okay, we're going to whisk together in the bowl. We're going to put the water, the warm water, the sugar, the oil, the yeast, the egg, and the honey. Okay, so we're going to put that in right now. So I'm going to get the hot water going here for a minute or two, just for some warm water. Okay. And I'm going to get that stuff going in just a moment. Okay, so first of all, you got to make sure you wash your hands, of course. That's a given when you've done that. So I've just washed my hands. So in our bowl, we're going to whisk together all those things. So we've got the water. And again, the water needs to be warm. Okay, so that activates the yeast. So I'm going to double this recipe. I hope I don't blow this. Okay, so we're going to whisk together the water. I'm pouring some water into the bowl. Okay, some sugar, and I've already pre-measured the sugar. So I'm going to put the sugar, the oil as well, which I've already measured out, and I've doubled that. Okay, so that's the oil goes in. I hope you can see this. The yeast, pouring this in here. Okay. The egg and the honey. So I'm going to put this honey in here. Hopefully I can get it out. So put the honey in here. The honey is quite nice, actually. It gives the bagels a nice sweetness. Okay. I'm just using my spatula here to get this honey out of this cup that I had to put it in. I'm a little shy on measuring tools. I don't do a lot of baking, so we don't have all the right tools, but you just wing it, right? It does help, I should say, to have a little scale. A lot of them measuring the recipes that I've found have a requirement for a little scale. They'll give it in measurements. So we've got one of these little scales here, which is helpful in terms of figuring out how much of each thing you need. Okay, and let's just see here. And I've got our eggs as well. So in this case, I'm doubling the recipe. It usually calls for just one egg. I'm going to put 2 in. Okay. Woo. Okay, I'm going to let you see this. So I'll take you over here so you can see. So there's my, there's my bowl with all my stuff in it. Okay, I'll put you back here. So I'm going to whisk that up. So I'm just whisking all of this stuff together. It's really important to give it a good stir to activate that yeast. Okay, make sure you get it all off the sides. Whisk it all up. Okay, I'm whisking that together right now. Okay. And then I'm going to whisk in some salt as well. So I've got my salt all here. I'm going to whisk that in as well. Okay. And that's what I'm doing right now. It's kind of frothy. I wish you could see this a little better, but I don't want to dump it on my counter. But it's just quite liquidy. Okay, so you've got all your liquid in the bowl there. And then we're going to start gently stirring in some of the flour. We don't want to dump it all in at once. As I've discovered over the years, I've got it all measured here, right? If I were to dump all this flour right into here, first of all, it's going to poof all up in my face, but also it's going to make a big mess. So I'm going to stir. I've discovered don't use a whisk when it says stir because it's going to get all clumped up in here and it's going to make a big mess. Okay, so I'm just going to get a stirring spoon and I'm going to start putting that in, and I'll pause for a sec and then I'll come back. Okay guys, so I've started adding the flour I paused it there for a minute. I've started adding the flour and I'm using a spoon to stir the flour into the mixture that we had in the bowl, that liquidy mixture. And you don't want to dump it all in at once because certainly, as we talked about, you're looking to get a nice consistency of your dough, I guess. And if you dump it all in at once, you might overdo it. So they suggest to put in just maybe a cup of flour at a time and sort of stir it in. It looked quite lumpy to me at first, but now I wish you could see a little more clearly. I'll show you in a sec when I dump it out. It's starting to get thicker, but it's really sticky right now, but we're going to keep adding some flour, and I'll continue to do that until the dough's ready, and then we're going to put it out onto the counter. Okay, so I'll just pause for a sec. So the dough is starting to get I just added quite a bit more flour there, so I'm still just stirring it together, and it's starting to look more like what I would expect dough to be, and it's not quite as sticky. I think the last time I maybe didn't use as much flour as I should have, and it was really tough to manipulate. It got really, really tricky. So I'm going to assume, I'm looking at this, it's starting to kind of look a bit stringy. Right here, you can see. Okay, can you see that? Okay, so I'm just gonna I think I'm gonna maybe add a tiny bit more. And then I'm going to, you sort of add the flour until it's they say it's supposed to be a soft dough that kind of bounces back when you press on it. And it says it should take about 10 to 12 minutes to get it to that consistency. It hasn't been that long, but it is starting to look like it's bouncing back at me. So I'm going to continue with the dough, and then when it's ready to go, you're going to put this into an oiled bowl, okay? Like make sure it's a little bit of oil in the bowl, or else the dough's going to end up sticking to the bowl when you put it in. So put it in an oiled bowl, just have a thin coat of oil on the dough as well, like make sure you kind of wipe a bit of the oil on the dough, and then you're going to cover it up with a tea towel and just let it sit for about 30 minutes, okay?